Okay, so I know people were probably coming back for the next edition in the Chronicles of George. Unfortunately, there's no update on George, but there is an updated character. Mr. Fabulous has entered the chat. Mr. Fabulous is a coworker that works with them. Yes, the whole team is now invested in this series and keeping you guys up to date. Okay, so let's get into this inbox that I got. George has befriended this younger gay guy we work with. He said to tell you he can go by Mr. Fabulous. He feels Mr. Fabulous has the best perspective because he's still a man, but somehow thinks being gay makes Mr. Fabulous have more expertise on how women think. Mr. Fabulous told me George believes that being gay is a close proximity to femininity and womanhood. He said that that's not how it works. If anything, he'd know way less about how women think. But he said George is in need of a friend and support, and his mama always told him to be kind and helpful if he can. All right, he said, by the way, we settled on Mr. Fabulous as a nickname because the other things that he was coming up with were a bit too saucy, too spicy for this series. And she told me to tell y'all for context, this is a funeral home. He's the cosmetologist and he does makeup for the deceased. What I have been thinking about as the last couple of days have unfolded is how these people are coming to aid George and how women should be pulling back. And so men are going to have to step into the gap for men like George that are finding themselves single, older, in bad health or whatever. There's gonna need to be like a commercial. Do you have time to sponsor an old man? Do you know how to wash dishes? Do you know how to set an alarm for medications? Then you can sponsor a George. A George is a man who has never had to do any adulting by himself, and he is in need of a friend. Do you have 1 to 2 hours a week that you can spare to help him open his mail, to help him learn where the customer service numbers are? Then you can be a sponsor for a George. That's what I was kind of thinking on this topic of men and they're failing and flailing because they haven't created the relationships. And what I am seeing from women is that they are opting out. They are like, get someone else to do it. And since, yeah, it's like in this case, men have been kind of running to his help. But I really hope that that lady, the black lady that said that she was going to remind him to take his meds, I hope she pulls back and that they let the men do it. Now, since I did not have an update on George, I figured I'd give you guys some of the comments from the comment section because the comment sections have been amazing. Okay, so Beth says, my mom kicked my dad out multiple times in their marriage. He'd go to a motel and go on a bender. Every evening after she made dinner for us, we'd go to the motel with a plate and clean clothes for him because men. She let him come back in a few days and the cycle repeated. So he needed clothes and food brought to him, a grown man, because they need so much hand holding. Martha says, I saw this happen with my ex brother in law. The day my sister left him, I knew he had no idea that he was circling the drain. He lived in filth. He even mentioned that we, my sisters and I, should come clean his house for him. He didn't take care of himself and drank himself to death. Every day after my sister left, his life got worse. This is why we know that they need us. And this is the reason why married men live longer. Because, wow. Martha continues, it was like my sister was literally keeping him alive. And then Heavenly said exactly that. Men live longer when they're with women. I kind of feel bad for my boyfriend because when I left, he was so depressed and didn't care for himself. And then this next person says, and they've been running things all this time. Kind of scary. They could barely run their lives, but they've been running governments and institutions and countries. This person says, this is the same group of people that would rather check themselves into senior living at 40 to 50 years old than to learn to take care of themselves. And Lori says, my ex was 16 years older than me. I spent a day showing him where to shop and to do, and she gave him a to-do list to prepare him for divorce. That's really nice of Lori to give him a to-do list to prepare him for divorce. Okay, so Andrea says, this was my dad. He couldn't do his own laundry, nor did he know how or who to pay on utilities and other bills. My mother did everything for him. Can you imagine? Well, I can imagine, because there was a mom to wife pipeline, or at least a mom to girlfriend to wife pipeline that these dudes have been following. And the mom to wife pipeline is drying up. Women are saying, is it really worth it? I could have more peace with my pet. Impolite Society says, this same thing happened to my aunt. Went back to the house and felt like she walked into a pigsty, screaming at the incompetence of these grown men. If you can't perform basic life skills, what then can you do, Mr. Man? So, yeah, I have hundreds of comments on my Chronicles of George posts. And so many women are relating the same thing, either as an ex or as a daughter who has a dad or an ex that cannot perform life. Perform life, dudes. If you're jumping into these comment sections, instead of getting defensive at me or anyone in the comment section, remember, you do not have to go down this path, and you too can sponsor a George. Just get yourselves together and get the Georges together, because the women are saying, get someone else to do it, unless you're paying, because you can always pay a cleaning lady and pay for a personal assistant.